Hello, this is Eileen, the environmental educator, and in this video we're going to talk about something that made headlines last week, and that the Mississippi River is at its lowest water level in a decade, and it is wreaking havoc with barge traffic. This is a CNN article. This is a Bloomberg. They say millions of tons of cargo is stalled, and here is the Guardian. Barges stranded as the Mississippi River reaches a critical low level. It was covered a bunch of places, but there's this right here at the top of this article. It talks about the drought in Texas, and in a state park, it's coming up with dinosaur tracks that are being uncovered from water levels receding. So yeah, that's going on in Texas. So there's a lack of water a lot of places in this country, but um, this is a CNN article. The lowest water levels in the Mississippi in a decade, caused by a severe Midwest drought, have closed a vital channel for barge to barge traffic at a crucial time of the year for the transport of crops from the nation's heartland. The Army Corps of Engineers has been dredging portions of the river in the past week in an attempt to deepen the channel to get barge traffic moving again. But the closures have caused a massive tie-up in the nation's already struggling supply chains. Yeah, it says that the low water has been responsible for 8 barges running aground last week alone, according to the Coast Guard. And if you didn't run aground, as of Friday, the Coast Guard said there's 144 vessels and 2,253 barges queued up and waiting to get through 2 stretches of the river where the traffic has been halted, one near Memphis, the other just north of Vicksburg, Mississippi. The Coast Guard said it hopes it would resume traffic again as soon as late Friday, but it couldn't say for certain if that would happen. But they are working very hard to get the water restricted to one-way travel when it is determined safe. But even when the barges start moving, they'll be forced to carry as much as 20% less cargo than normal in order to not ride too deep in the water. And rather than a single vessel moving between 30 to 40 barges at one time, as they normally do, they've been forced to move to 25 barges on each trip due to the more narrow channels. So that, of course, is driving up the costs. The rates for the shippers are soaring because the combination of fewer barges per trip and less cargo per barge has cut the capacity of barges moving on the river by about 50%. And that's even before the river closures. So river barges are still a major method of moving cargo within the United States, especially for agricultural products. About 5% of all freight in the United States moves on river barges when measured by the weight of the cargo and the distance traveled from the Bureau of Transportation. And it says right here that most of the barge traffic moving south at this time of year is carrying agricultural products. Many of those moving north are loaded with fertilizer that farmers need for their next planting. It says this time of year for the river is crucial for moving product. So this is the Bloomberg article. It says that there's more than 2,000 barges are halted already. Shippers are already seeing the cost rise for all rail and truck transport. Their other option, I guess. It says that prolonged drought is jeopardizing the waterborne trade along the Mississippi River, a basin that produces 92% of the nation's agricultural exports. As of Friday, the river was still closed near Stack Island, Mississippi, and Memphis, Tennessee. That has resulted in a backup of more than 2,000 barges at various points, according to the Coast Guard. Yeah, it's serious stuff. This has happened before, though. In 2012, it happened, and the Great Plains drought led to a 35 billion in losses for the U.S. They said, including closing the river on at least 3 occasions. In 2020, the total value of domestic commerce that moved from Minneapolis to the mouth of the river was almost 70 billion. That's according to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So this is where it's being held up. Here's Stack Island here, and here's Memphis, and then of course the Mississippi goes north and then comes out down here. But this Bloomberg article says the timing couldn't be worse because barges are busy carrying recently harvested corn and soybeans up and down the river, two of the top three most heavily transported commodity products. And that was working against future prices. And it says in 2019, more than 65 million tons of soybeans passed along the river from Minneapolis to its mouth in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, it says the Army Corps estimates that the Mississippi carries 589 million tons of freight a year, which creates a 12.5 billion annual transportation savings. Because, yeah, these articles, maybe it's the next article, it really says that shipping things by barges is the most economically feasible as opposed to by truck or train. But this blockage is forcing companies to find other methods, such as rail and truck transport to get these goods moving. And that is just expected to raise prices just because these are more expensive options. So just more in the way of raising prices. And this article says a prolonged disruption will have heavy implications for the economy. Barge transport is cheaper than rail and truck and has a smaller environmental impact. Delays mean coal shipments to fire power plants may not reach their destination in a timely fashion, potentially raising electricity costs for customers. It also means more traffic gridlock on U.S. highways and higher costs at the gasoline pump. And it says here that one hopper barge carries as much dry cargo as 16 rail cars or 70 trucks, so one 15 barge tow keeps 1,050 trucks off the highways. Barges move liquids efficiently too. One tank barge moves as much as 46 rail cars or 144 trucks. And in this Guardian article, it says it's affecting local economies too. In Vicksburg, in western Mississippi, the mayor, George Flagg, said that the river was lower than he had seen it in nearly 70 years. It's definitely having an impact on the local economy because the commercial use of the river has almost stopped. So, there's a lot of people employed getting all of this commercial traffic up and down rivers. And the barge lines, Golding Barge Line here, the president, Austin Golding, said this will actually affect us in a very negative way. We have to have less cargo on our barges and less tonnage moving. It affects our revenues. Of course it does. Because he says right here, we need the barges fully loaded and our tows pushing as many barges as possible to be as economically viable as possible. Well, of course, that's just basic economics. And it says barges have long been considered a sustainable and cost-effective alternative for shippers. A single hopper barge can haul as much dry cargo as 16 rail cars or 70 trucks. Right, and the same as the last article, that a 15 barge tow can keep 1,050 trucks off the highway. Moreover, a barge can move a ton of freight 29% further than a rail car and 4 times further than a truck. Rail generates 39% more carbon dioxide than barge travel for the same amount of cargoes. For trucks, that figure is 371%. So, as if things aren't just at a low point enough in most every way you can measure things in this country right now. This is just another problem that has crept up and is now at the forefront and is impacting, not just the people who run these barge operations or the towns that help these barges, unload and offload things and get through the rivers. Um, but it's going to be impacting people in their home electricity costs and just in how much they're paying for products now that products aren't being moved by barges and instead are being moved by more expensive rail and trucks. So just another of the consequences of the low water levels in a decade, and it's happening. It's not just in the West. There's a drought like in the Southeast, in Kansas, and right here in Texas. They're in a massive drought, and these dinosaur tracks have now been exposed. But the bigger concern is, of course, the commerce and all of the goods, especially produce. There's some goods that it can sit on, a barge and still be sellable in 3 months, even if it gets stalled. When it gets to the store, it's still a new product that can be sellable. But produce produce has a short lifespan. So this is just another in a whole slew of problems that are wreaking havoc across the United States and causing Americans' pocketbooks to look smaller and smaller. So stay tuned, people.